Hi guys, it's Paula and I hope you are doing well. Today I thought I would hop on here and talk about my favorite color of green for Christmas. I figured I'd do a little shop my stash, show you some swatches from my collection, and tell you why this color is so special to me. It is really hard for me to describe this color. So while I'm talking, I will be throwing up some pictures of screenshots I found on my internet search. But basically, this is a very, very light shade of green that is almost not a green. I would say that if you were taking colors and you threw white and silver and gold and just a dash of green into a bucket and mixed it up, that would be the shade of green that I think is the most fabulous shade of green, and a shade I particularly enjoy wearing around winter. I definitely think this color can be worn all year long, and I think it would look really great in summer as well. But there's something about, like, the moment December 1st came, I started thinking about this color and wanting to put it on my eyes. I associate this color with Christmas. And I think there's a few reasons why. When I think about nature, I think about the snow falling on evergreen trees and blue spruces and different greenery, and the look of this icy snow on top of the green trees reminds me so much of this color. I also think of it in the candy and the foods that we eat around the holidays. I think about it in the decorations. I don't know what it's called everywhere else in the world, but there's something I specifically associate with the holidays, and it's something called German glitter. I don't know what Germans call it, but I've always known it as German glitter. And German glitter definitely has this combination of like gold and silver. I love that. Whenever I see that color in eyeshadows, it immediately reminds me of German glitter. I like that color so much. I don't like wearing gold, like a true gold, and I don't like wearing a true silver, but if you combine the gold and the silver together, it is the most flattering shade of gold silver out there. And this shade has just a touch of green in it. So German glitter is something that we've had in our family holiday decorations for years. And so the connection to German glitter definitely makes it feel very holiday to me as well. So I think that's my explanation for why the shade of green, although I think it would be great all year long, is just calling to me really hard since December 1st rolled around. So I pulled some shadows from my stash and I thought I'd show you. I also have some like close colors that I think would do, because I actually only have 4 colors that I feel are pretty close to spot on, and the rest are just kind of close. I don't have a lot of this color in my collection, sadly. If you can think of where you've seen this color in my collection besides what I'm showing you today, let me know. And if you have a palette with this shade in it, let me know that too, because I'd be interested to see, because I don't see this color very often. But without further ado, let me show you the color I've been talking about this whole time. So the best example I have of this shade is ColourPop's Slay. Obviously, I'm not the only one who associates this shade with Christmas, because ColourPop named this shade Slay, like S-L-E-I-G-H, not S-L-A-Y. And this is the shade I have on most of my eyelids. I have like a dark green on the outer portion, but here's what it looks like in its little Super Shock shadow pan. I'm gonna hold my fingers up like this just to make sure nothing falls out. But this is the shade I've been talking about this whole time. It's just a dash of green, a dash of gold, a dash of silver, and that's what makes this amazing, amazing shade. This is by far the closest I have out of everything I'm gonna swatch tonight to my favorite shade. I love this shadow so much. I hit pan on it a long time ago and I haven't touched it in years. Today was the first day I've used it in forever. And I think this is going on my list of Super Shock shadows I would like to repurchase. It's a short list. So far I just would like to repurchase Koosh and this, but I'm keeping track of this one because it is such a beautiful shade. And obviously I've had this Super Shock shadow for many, many years, so it's not as impactful as it used to be when it was nice and fresh. But hopefully, if I build it up enough, you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, so here is a swatch of Slay right there. This is the standard to which all other shades are being held to. That's it right there. The next shadow I pulled that I think is pretty close comes from my Tarte Make Believe in Yourself palette, and this is the shade Marvel. Why is this not opening? All right, I don't know why it's not opening, but it's the shade right here. Kind of green, kind of gold, kind of silver. Right there. Next, I think the next closest, I think this is the last of the super close ones, comes from the Alamar palette. Now, when I look at this Alamar palette, I definitely think summer, especially when I look at all 8 shadows together. This is such a summer palette, but this shade, El Malecon, is so Christmas green to me. It's just, that's all it can be. It's Christmas green. And it's almost identical to the Tarte shade. A little bit, I don't know, maybe a little bit more yellowy green. So you can see the Slay one is just a little bit cooler. That's still the closest I have to like my perfect winter green. But I think all of these would do. I think they'd all create the same vibes. The last shadow I pulled that is in the ballpark of this green, but is on the outskirts, comes from an oldie. I don't talk about this palette really ever, but this is the Too Faced Romantic Eye palette. Oh, it's an oldie, and I literally bought this entire palette for this one shade right here called Honeymoon, because I love this shade so much, and I think it's close to this greenish, goldish, silverish shade that I love so much. I'd like to get it all on the same row. Okay, I'm gonna put it on this side. There is a swatch of the Too Faced shade right there. Okay, now if you don't have any of these oldies in your collection, I don't blame you, because these palettes are all quite old. Well, 2 of them are not as old as the other 2, but overall they're getting to be pretty old. I do have some other runner-ups, I'd say, for this shade, so I figured I'd show you them as well. First of all, from my BH Cosmetics Zodiac palette, this shade is definitely darker. It's a little bit more olivey, but it's this shade up here called Capricorn. Yeah. These are so buttery. Yeah, this is just really too dark, but I figured I'd swatch it and compare it. Maybe if I put like something silvery or gold on top of it, it could transform it, but you could see how much darker it is. That's really not the vibe of my favorite green. This one might be a little too like minty green. This is a Makeup Geek eyeshadow. This is the shade Fantasy. And it looks like it's ready to crumble out of the pan. But here it is right there. Again, I think it's a close but no cigar kind of shade. But I still think it would be super pretty and super appropriate for the winter. Especially as like an inner corner highlight or a lid shade. That is gorgeous. I love that. It actually is quite close to Slay. It's closer to Slay than I thought it would be. That's why it's good to do these videos. Okay, the next shade comes from my Lorac Mega Pro 2 palette. This is the 2, right? And the shade is Olivine. Another shade I bought an entire palette for, not gonna lie. I also kind of bought this palette for Goji, this one right here. But here is Olivine right here. And I think it fits the qualifications of a light greeny silvery gold shade. This one's a little bit more of a like khaki, yeah, like army green khaki shade. It's like a lighter version of the BH Cosmetics shade, but there it is right there. Yeah, when I show it up to the light, it actually looks really close to Slay, shockingly close. Wow, no wonder why I like that color so much. I bought a whole palette for that color. Now, when I'm looking at it, it doesn't look as close to Slay, but yeah, it does look a lot like Slay. I think I nailed it. I think this shade needs to move in the dupesies category. Okay, next I figured I would swatch a shade from my Pat McGrath Mothership Mega Celestial Odyssey palette. This was gifted to me through Influencer last year, and the shade, which is like my favorite color in any palette, arrived broken, and I was crushed. And I can't open this. Why can't I open this palette? There we go. Out of all the shades to arrive broken, I think I was the saddest that this was a shade that broke. But here it is right there. Again, I think it's a little too intense of a green to fit in the category of my favorite, like winter green. But I figured I would pull it out and swatch it. Yeah, it's a little bit, whoa, it's a little bit too intense. But I think it would be really pretty. Like if I replace that shade with this shade, I think that would look gorgeous. And this last shade, I'm not sure if it even qualifies as a green, but it definitely reminds me so much of like the German glitter that I was telling you guys about. And this shade comes from my Natasha Denona green brown palette. And it is this goldeny shade right here. It's called True Gold, but to me, it should have been called German Gold, because that's what I see when I look at that shade right here. I just think that is, and seeing it next to the silver, I think a lot of fun could be had playing with those two shades together and kind of mixing them together. But let me swatch the gold. Oh my gosh. And I also want to put a little bit on top of that dark BH Cosmetics shade and see if that gets it a little bit closer. Wow, it's so pigmented, it's hard to even see if it's mixing with the BH Cosmetics shade at all. Oh, it's just so beautiful. All right, how can I do this? There is the Natasha Denona shade right there. You can see it has a lot of green to it, a surprising amount for something called True Gold, right? It is close to my Slay shade. Oh my gosh. And then I did put a little bit on top of the BH Cosmetics shade. Like I said, I don't know if it's just so pigmented that it's covering up the shade or if it did mix together a little bit. But I'm just trying to encourage you to consider mixing your shadows to find this shade within your collection. If you don't have this specific shade within your collection and you'd like to play around with it, find a green and put some gold on top of it, or some silver, or some gold and some silver, and see what happens. So what do you guys think? Here are all of my dupes for my favorite winter green. This is the original ColourPop Slay right there. It is so sad. It's losing a lot of pigment. It's drying out. Which one do you guys think is the closest? I almost want to say that the Lorac Mega Pro 2 and the Natasha Denona are the closest to Slay, both of which were palettes that I thought were in the close but no cigar category. But it turns out now that I've actually swatched them, they're like the closest, which is crazy. I also am just kind of really loving the two greens. What were they? Oh, this was the green from my Pat McGrath palette, and this was that Makeup Geek green. I'm also surprised by how gold these two shadows, or how similar these two shadows look, but how gold they're looking in these swatches, because in the pan, they don't look nearly as gold as they are looking in these swatches, especially when I kind of bend my hand that way. It looks super gold, like an antique bronze shade. And then when I turn it this way, they're kind of duochrome, aren't they? That was my Tarte Make Believe in Yourself palette and my Alamar Cosmetics palette. Yeah, that's what those were. Those are definitely very, very similar. So I didn't do a demo for my eye look today, but basically I took a warm brown throughout my crease, and then I took a dark like wintergreen from my Pan That palette, or like a dark evergreen from my Pan That palette, and put that in the outer V and my lower lash line. And then I put Slay all over my eyelid, and I have my silver couche on my inner corner. And I used some black eyeliner and mascara. And that's about it. And I could pretty much wear this eye look for the next 23 days. So I hope you guys had fun watching this video and shopping my stash with me for this amazing green, gold, silver shade that I love so much all year long, but especially during the month of December. I just think it is an amazing winter green, winto green shade. And I hope this inspires you to shop your stash for your favorite winter shade this fall. If it's not a shade like this, if it's something totally different, let me know what that shade is. What is your favorite winter color? What color specifically do you associate with the holidays or with winter time or with the month of December? Because literally December 1st happened and it was like a switch went off and all this started. I wasn't thinking about any of this on November 30th. December 1st hit, bam, it's all light green all day long, and it's all I could think about. So let me know what color you're dreaming of this December and inspired to play with your makeup, and specifically your eyeshadow. But that is going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.